Welcome back to EPG program in Japanese. We are into paper 5, communication through translation, Honyaku Tsujite no communication, and getting into module 19, that is the part 2 of patent translation, and we designed the module in a way where you learn while practicing the translation. So jisen shinagara gakshasuru Tokyo path ni. This is the content writer, and the acknowledgement goes to Surabhi, Rajat and Anukumari in that order. All the three are the trainees in the ongoing translation training program of CSR NISCARE, and their contribution is for the data collection and the base work. Let me recapitulate what we have done in the previous module. Number 1 is the rational application and combination of techniques cut down the overheads. For example, if these techniques are applied, one which was tried was 5W1H followed by frame capturing, or using 5W1H to frame capture. Then in addition to that units, again 5W1H and transpositioning. And the more slightly modified or simplified technique is 5W1H applied to capture the frame and again applied for transpositioning. Now, application of unit concept definitely makes the job more mechanical, which actually means easier, but to that extent only, because mechanical will not have that touch that is required in the translation. Then keeping aside initially the adjectives, adjectival clauses, multiple nouns help, and helps in a big way. Then proper nouns may be transliterated, and possible meaning, if required, may be given in parenthesis, sometimes as a footnote. Unsaid part in Japanese is a very common phenomenon. For example, finishing with just towa, something towa. This needs to be handled contextually. And with regard to the frames, the hint is that the number of verbs in a sentence may be equal to the number of frames. Then domain specific units. This concept was introduced in a previous module, but here we have seen the exact examples. The domain specific units may be applicable in other domains also. Again, it has to be applied very carefully. Then certain other things which are domain specific, for example, the international codes such as INID codes in this case are very useful for universal applicability. Here in this module, we will be introducing the application of translation techniques on patent translation, particularly scope of patent, or what we call scope of patent claim, and the process of simplification of the procedure will continue. The objectives remain the professional pursuit, which means defining way forward for the practitioners while attempting new domain. Guiding principles remain follow systematic approach, though combination of techniques remain dynamic. Look for the way to handle the deviations, render accurate translation with reasonable readability even in the case of patents. And outcome remains same as it has been in almost all the modules we have done, that is practicing scholars of translation. We need to groom who could sail through the patent translation. That means the confidence building measures, generating realistic theories through practice, and the trainer's trainer. Let's start with the scope of patent. This is one example which has been picked up here. It starts with Tokyo Seikyu no Hai, that is the scope of the patent. And there's one more line called Seikyu ko Ichi. These are the two simple things, but then the next paragraph seems to be quite complicated. Let me see or just tell me, is it too long, too complicated? Fine. So let's try to do some segmentation here. Let's attempt the first two lines first. See, Tokyo Seikyu no Hai and Seikyu ko Ichi. First one is there is a particle in between, and the other two are basically noun. One is the compound noun, the other is a simple noun, and the second one is simply noun only, and there is a number coming with it. So let's do it if we can do with the help of domain specific unit. If we try to break the first one, that is Tokyo Seikyu no Hai, it's very simple, Tokyo plus Seikyu, and then it is getting connected with no and no hai. So no hai, we know it's scope of, and Tokyo plus Seikyu is patent claim. So it's very simple. So scope of patent claim, and it becomes a domain specific single unit. It will be applicable universally. Seikyu ko is again can be divided into two if you want, but no need. It's claim, and actually claim in terms of number, that is claim 1, 2, 3. So again this is single unit and universal. So this resolves difficulty of those two lines, and we can use these forever in the case of patents. Now the learning here is that to the extent possible we must apply the unit or the domain specific unit resolution approach. Now let's attempt segmentation on the remaining part. Just see, can you recall the first slide where you had 5 or 6 or 7 lines continuously written, too many kanji probably, and too many verbs coming? Probably you will be confused with the subject also, because va is also occurring 2 times in this particular example. Now if we break it, and this is a very simple segmentation, it's done in a very mechanical manner. Wherever you felt you can do. For example, it starts with the sentence starts with Denryoku o Denso suru, and then if you go further, then it says a something sochi to, and again then it goes further and says o fukumu juden sochi to o. So it is to o sonaeru, and then it talks of a system, sonaeru system de atte. So system de atte, obviously this atte either has to go in a sequential order after this, or it has to be kept aside. So I think it can be broken here easily. Then next compound has got va with it, it can easily be separated like this. And if we go further, then it is breaking at to and o moto ni, so ni, then o sonai. Up to here it can be broken into smaller pieces, and then again va, then again o moto ni, then o tokteshi, and ga zureru yoni, and then finally system. Now if we break at these places, it has started making some sense now. I think you can probably now understand line by line, but it may not be easy to connect the lines. So let's see, can we do something else? It looks simple. Yes, it does look simple, but does it serve the purpose? I think some more technique is required, or application of technique is required. So let's see. First, let's see the English translation of this particular paragraph. Oh, it's same. Again, you have got too many lines, too many technical words. So for example, if I read it, a contactless power transmission system. I don't know if you'll understand power transmission system. I don't know whether it is physical power or electrical power, and then you have a transmission system, probably talking about some wires through power goes from one electrical power goes from one place to the other place, but it says contactless, so difficult to understand. So from beginning itself, the context is not so easily comprehensible context. And if we see further, we'll find that coupled to the power transmission coils, wherein the power transmitting device includes a placing portion. So something where it looks like a legal language. Why not? Let's attempt it ourselves by using the techniques which we have learned so far. So let's derive the segment-wise equivalence from the original Japanese for scope of patent, that is scope of patent claim, step by step. And it's basically this is the pieces which were broken earlier. Now it's not helping much. It's 5W1H we can use to capture the frame, maybe use units also, and again the technique process remains the same, but it does make some sense, but the things are not so clear. So let's regroup these segments in a meaningful manner. Now these are the 4 segments which can be drawn from the segmentation which we have done earlier. The first one breaks at de atte only, so it is A to, A is a sochi, so A to, and then B is again a sochi, so A to, B to, O sonairu. Then it is he seishoku dendyoku denso system de atte. So I think this is adjectival, you can simply say system de atte. So this is segment 1. Then it starts with zenki so so then sochi wa, and if we see, then there were to o motoni, and then o hante suru, hante bu, to o sonai. This means o sonai is going probably with many things. So segment 2 up to here, and then there's a wa coming once again. So it is zenki hashin buwa, and if we see carefully, it's something sochi o motoni, then hashin taishoni tonaru. Again, if you continue, then it says soden koir o tokteshi, and then it goes further ga zureru yoni, and kaku soden koir ni nagareru denryo no parameta o sette suru koto o tokcho to suru. So sette suru koto up to here, segment 3, and o tokcho to suru, another segment. Now the key point here is that o tokcho to suru is a typical expression used in the case of patent, so we are breaking it as a separate segment. So segmentation therefore needs to be done keeping in mind this key expression, maybe the topic and maybe sometimes subject and the verbs also. Hit and trial, we have seen now, hit and trial works in the case of segmentation when logic is or logic application is a bit difficult. So each segment can be translated independently with the 4 segments which we saw in the previous one by further segmentation into macro frame, micro frame, and or units. You can also say probably sub segments followed by transpositioning using 5W1H. As I said that there is a typical key feature in the case of patent, and that is o tokcho to suru. So in this case, koto o tokcho to suru, you can also start with o or put the koto with the previous one. O tokcho to suru, hiseshoku denryoku denso system. So this is segment 4, and this is patent specific, and this patent specific writing style it needs to be handled probably first. So let me go step by step for this segment 4. If we see carefully, then it was hiseshoku, denryoku, denso, system. So the complete thing can go as X, a noun. So koto o tokcho to suru X. And if we translate this, it becomes X, which is characterized by, and that is the equivalent in target language. Now place back the element which was taken away is contactless transmission system. That's for hiseshoku is contactless. Denryoku denso, denryoku is getting dropped here. Denryoku in Japanese is used quite often, but in English normally if we say transmission in the context means in electrical context, then electrical is not required or power is not required. So contactless transmission system which is characterized by. Let's see now the segment 1 in the next slide. What you need to remember here is that the patent specific style needs to be taken up first in the case of patent, and certain things, certain hints you can remember, that the power in power transmission and electric power can be dropped when we are talking within the scope of the electrical domain. This is the segment 1. I think I'll have to take help of Surbhi here, because Surbhi, can you read it for me? It's too small for me to read. It's actually this segment 1 is the previous one, the first statement, which was system de aate. And yes, can you read it please, loudly please?
Denryoku o denso suru, so then koiru o fukumu, so then
sochito, zenki so then koir ni, I think it's jiki or yes, jiki ketsugo sareru, ju then koir o fukumu, ju then sochi. If you read it carefully, you are actually getting the nouns easily, and there is some adjectival part just before those nouns. To o sunairu, hiseshoku denryoku denso system de atte. Now, let's try to understand the subsegments. Now these are the parts of the sentence or the sub-segments of the sentence, and it's denryoku o denso suru, so den koiru o fukumu, so den sochi. Now the way I was reading, you can always find so then sochi it is talking about, and there is an adjectival portion before that. So it's so then sochito, and that's what it is written. It's an adjectival clause plus noun, and this noun is getting substituted as a. And then again in the second one also it is zenki so then koirni, jiki ketsugo sareru, ju then koiru o fukumu. So up to here is fukumu, that means it's adjectival, and then it is ju then sochito. So it's again adjectival clause plus noun which is getting substituted as b. So it's basically a to b to, and the next one is o sonairu, which is a verb, and a to b to o sonairu. And if you see the next one, the first part, that is he says shoku, is contactless. Then denryoku denso is transmission or power transmission, system de atte. So it's basically system. So only the adjective can get dropped. System de atte becomes noun plus de atte. And the frame or the structure comes out as a to b to o sonairu, system de atte, which easily get translated as is a system having a and b. And if you want, you can put it is a system having a and b. So I think can you read out Surbhi the comments here?
The adjectival clauses can be dealt separately as microframes. Complex or difficult elements substituted for lowering degree of unfamiliarity. Adjectives kept aside for the time being.
We have done it earlier also. It's just to remind, but if you can see, such a long or a complicated appearing sentence becomes so simple when you remove the adjectival clause for the time being, because it can be handled separately, and then replacement with something which is familiar to you. What I would say that what we are doing here is a to b to o, and if you are familiar with sochi, then you can say sochi a to so juden koir, and if you know the juden koir, then there is no need to say even a. You can say sochi to juden koir o. Sorry, there is a sochi again at the end here. So it is sochi a to sochi b to o sonairu. So you have to have the familiarity to the extent possible. Substitution should be done in a reasonable and a rational manner to that extent, and adjectives must be kept aside for the time being because it helps improving the comfort level. Let's identify now the macro and the micro frames. System de atte, it's a system, and now see the micro frames. A to b to o sonairu, system. So system has a and b. It's also possible to have system de atte and a to b o sonairu together. That's also possible. We have tried to take out the adjectival clause in this case and kept it separately so that the macro frame becomes very small. It depends upon you. If you can understand the combination, then a to b o sonairu system de atte can be taken as one macro frame, and other micro frames are denryoku o denso suru, and then so then koiru o fukumu. If you see, there are some components taken from the previous one to basically improve your comprehension. That is denryoku o so den suru, so den koiru, sono so den koiru o fukumu, a. Like this, some connectivity if you keep making while breaking the sentence into segments or sub-segments. The next one is zenki so den koiru ni, jiki ketsugo sareru, ju den koiru, and ju den koiru o fukumu. The equivalents as are listed here, they are very clear. So let's try to see, can we do something about it? See again, Sulbhi, can you read the comments?
Here, sub-segments in orange are the adjectival clauses for the adjoining noun in pink, example A, B, etc., and can be translated separately. Denryoku o denso suru literally translates as transmit electric power. Electric can be dropped.
Yeah, so transmit power is enough in this case because of course denryoku has got kanji of den and ryoku, which means electric power, but when we say power in English without knowing any context, you may have to say, but if you know that they are talking in electrical context, then power means electrical power. Now let's identify, let's list those frames here once again. If we try to join them as it is, probably they may not render very meaningful connectivity. So let's try to apply the concept of 5W1H while joining. Let's try to put the question. The first question is here, Surabhi, can you read the first question? System de aate, which means it is a system. Next question.
Donna system de aru.
Since nan deska, I say system de aate. She's asking donna system de aru. Then I say A to B sonaru system.
A va dosta.
Okay. So then koirof kumu.
So then koiru va nani o suruka.
Den ryokuo denso suru.
B va dosta.
Juden koirof kumu.
Juden koiru va dos sareruka.
Zenki soden koirni jiki ketsugo sareru. Now you see, if you could you get the hint here? What we are trying to do is that there is something given in the sentence. You pick up that particular sub-segment and try to put a question, and if that becomes an answer to that question, this means you are getting some meaning out of it or some sense out of it. So it's basically the process of comprehension. And if you see the way it worked, team really works. So if you are doing together with somebody, it is helpful. And if we connect the target language equivalents as listed here, then it comes as, you know, if you see carefully, I am saying it is a system that has A and B. So step by step it is getting connected. It is a system that has A that include transmission coil and B. So it's thinkai happening, you know, it's deployment of the next subsegment into the previous one happening step by step. And if we join all, it comes as it is a system that has A that includes transmission coil that transmits power, and B that includes charging coil that is magnetically coupled to transmission coil mentioned earlier. Now if you read it slowly, it's not so difficult, but if you read it fast and do not try to get engaged or involved with the content, you'll find it quite complex, which actually it is not. Now the same sentence, this is a translation as rendered in the previous slide. Now let's try to put back what was taken away. So it comes as it is a contactless transmission system that has transmitting device that includes, so those words which were dropped are being brought back. That means adjectival, primarily adjectives, and I think there's a charging device that is coming here. Let's see if we can do some fine tuning, and if we put something like, for example, it is put from our side. So it is a contactless transmission system comprising a transmitting device that includes transmission coil transmitting power, and a charging device that include, so some fine tuning like A and A coming and that coming here, it makes the flow much better. In between, you know, for example, charging coil magnetically coupled to the earlier mentioned, if we put the, it becomes more, the readability becomes much better. So macro and micro frames undergo inter and intra transpositioning to, you know, to suit the needs of the target language. Now we are taking now the segment 2. Let's try to understand the components, the parts or the subsegments in segment 2. These are the subsegments, but if you see carefully, most of these are adjectival clause plus noun, and all these nouns are getting replaced or substituted by ABCD. Slightly difficult for me to read, I think. Surabhi, can you read? First we are taking subtopic. Yeah, there is Y is coming again, so it's subtopic, that is Zenki Soden, what's that, Sochi, Zenki Soden Sochiwa, and
Zenki Juden Sochiwa, Saichi Sareru Saichibu.
Okay, so Saichi Sareru Saichibu, is it? No, so Saichi Sareru Saichibu means Saichibu is the noun about which you are talking, and the rest of the part is adjectival. So most of the things you'll find next in the next one, it is Soden koir to, and then next is some saseru and then hashinbu probably, and again in the next one it is at the end what is that, kenchibu?
Yes.
Kenchibu, and then in the next one it is inductance o motoni. Is it motoni or?
Inductance o motoni.
So it's motoni o motoni, and before inductance it is I think the whole clause can be taken as adjectival clause. Inductance o motoni, those goes as adjectival clause, and the last one has got a verb to o sonai. But if we see carefully, it is so then sochiva, the topic or the subtopic remains. C to D to E to F to G to O sonai. So it's quite simple. If you want, you can drop even A, B, C, D and can have it as one only, because this one can be replaced by the multiple number of nouns and the adjectival parts. But translating this much will be as regards transmitting device has C, D, E, F and G. Maybe it has C, D, E, F and G. Yes, Surabhi, can you read the comment here?
Here, sub-segments in orange are the adjectival clauses for the adjoining nouns in pink, example C, D, E, etc., and can be translated separately.
Okay, so we don't have to take burden of this, it can be translated separately. Now, let's try to identify the macro and micro frames on the basis of what information or what comprehension we had in the previous slide. Subtopic was as very clear as regards transmitting device. Then macro frame was C to D to and finally O sonai, so has C, D, E, F and G, etc. And these are the micro frames. So now these micro frames, if you see, are quite simple to translate now. It is Zenki, Juden, Sochi, Ga, Saichi, Sareru. So earlier mentioned charging device is placed. So Saichi Sareru is placed. Next is similarly Hai Retsu Sareta. And Shitagawa or Shitagawa ni or Kasokuni Hai Retsu Sareta. So it's was arranged on the lower side of the earlier mentioned something. And then Kakusoden, Koir O, and here there are words which are difficult. You'll have to pick up these words from the dictionary. It's a kanji of tie or hoka. Then is stimulating, and it's a verb, so stimulate sareru. So it's separately oscillate each transmission coil, and it was hashin, so it is fine separately oscillated. Then Kakusoden Koirno inductance o kenchisuru. So detect inductance of each transmission coil. Let's try to apply the 5W1H technique, and it comes as follows. Let me try once again. Surabhi, you put the question.
Nani osuru.
Sonai.
Nani o sonairu.
Then it is C, D, E, F. So it is C to, D to, E to, F to, G to, O sonai.
C vadoshta.
Now the verb comes. That is Saichi Sareru and Ga Saichi Sareru and Zenki Juden Sochi ga Saichi Sareru.
D vadoshta.
Zenki Sochi, I think can't read. Can you read, please?
Zenki Saichi bu.
Saichi bu no
Shitagawa ni
Hai Sareru. So first one was sonai, that means it has or it is equipped with, and the second is the verb is the device is placed because it is Saichi Sareru, and the third is Hairetsu Sareru, it is arranged in the lower side of the earlier mentioned placing part. Again it is Hashin Saseru, and translation is separately oscillate each transmission coil. It continues in the next slide. Yes, next question.
F vadoshta.
Inductance o kenchisuru. So kakuso then koirno inductance o kenchisuru, which is that detects the inductance of each transmitted coil.
G vadoshta.
it's a little long sentence. O moto ni, so kaku souden koiru no inductance o moto ni zenki shi ni okeru zenki juden sochi no saichi ichi o hante suru. So hante suru means it determines. So it determines the position, determines the placing position. What? Placing position of earlier mentioned charging device in earlier mentioned C based on inductance of each transmission coil. And one more.
So then coil no inductance wa doshita.
Yeah, so it's a further question because there was further adjectival thing, further explanation. So there is a further question. Zenki F ni yori kenchi sareta. So it's detected through earlier mentioned F. Now if you see carefully, we could easily translate those segments without not much difficulty, and putting them together we get this sentence here. This was the last from the last slide, and if we place back the components which were kept aside, it comes as follows. And now some amount of fine tuning, like we are adding on which the earlier mentioned, like this some fine tuning, and you find that sentence comes quite readable. Now let's do the same thing with the segment 3. First is the understanding the components, the parts, that is the subsegments, and it is first is zenki hashin kiwa, so it's an adjective plus noun which becomes subtopic 2. Then the next one is omotoni and then comma tonaru. So this whole thing is actually adjectival clause, or you can say two adjectival components. The next is so then koiro hanteshi tokteshi. So tokteshi is again a verb preceded by a noun which is substituted as D, and then this tokteshita fukusu no so then koirni nagareru. Then you know what is this? Hake ga zureru yoni. Now this is little longer, so zureru yoni kakaso then koirni. Let's treat it as an adjective clause separately. And then you know parametao settesuru, so noun which gets replaced as substitute, which is getting substituted as P plus verb, and it comes as hashin buwa dio tokteshi pio settesuru. So quite simple. We have at least 2.5 full lines coming to about half line only, so getting reduced to less than 1/5 actually. And the translation is as regards oscillation part specifies D and establishes P, as it comes here. Now let's try to identify the macro and the micro frame. The procedure remains the same as it was done in the previous examples or previous segments. First is hashin buwa, that is as regards oscillation part. Macro frame is dio sette shi pio, sorry, dio tokte shi pio sette suru. So A specifies, A is not required here, so A is actually, it specifies D and establishes P. Then the microframes are listed here. First is zenki hante buni yori hante sareta, and so determine through the determining part. Zenki hante bu is determining part. Then next is can you read please? Next. Yes, the second one.
Dini nagare.
No, the previous one. The second one, that is saichi ichio moto ni. Saichi ichio moto ni can be taken as one adjectival clause separately, and the following part is hashin taisho tonaru. The whole thing become oscillation target based on placing position. And then tokteshita was specified, dini nagareru is flown in. Then you know hakega zureru yoni kaku dini nagareru, so flows in each D so that the waveform of current shifts. Again, then you is current is enough, it's electric is not required. Once again, we'll apply 5W1H because joining it as it is may not give very meaningful connectivity. And the questions, let's start. Yes, first question is Tokteshi specifies D o Toktesuru, so specifies D. D was Saichi Ichi o Motoni, so based on something, based on placing position. Hashin Taisho to Naru, so it becomes target or oscillation target. The next question. Saichi Ichi wa Zenki Hante Buni Yori Hante Sareta. You see, the answer is getting connected, and the translation is that is determined through earlier mentioned determining part. Next question. Hokani nani osuru? Yeah, do not understand, so put a separate question. Hokani nani osuru? You can put random questions. If answer does not come, it means that question is not relevant, and if the answer comes, it means the question is relevant. So the answer here is Settesuru, which is establishes. Nani o Settesuru? F o Settesuru. Sorry, P o Settesuru probably, yes. Let's continue. More questions. P wa doshita. P wa denryu no hake ga zureru yoni kaku D ni nagareru. I hope you understood that. So that's the equivalent given there. Sono denryu wa doshita. D ni nagareru. Sono denryu wa D ni nagareru. D wa doshita. D wa tokteshita. So if you see, all the questions are getting answered, it's getting connected, and the flow by joining these components come as follows. Let's place back the elements which were taken aside. This is how it comes. Earlier mentioned comes in, multiple comes in, and multiple comes in at two places. Some amount of fine tuning. The earlier mentioned, the is added here, then multiple transmission coils that become oscillation. So that is added here. Then and is added in the second line. Then current flowing in the specified multiple transmission coils shifts. The macro and micro frames undergo inter and intra-transpositioning to suit the requirement of the target language. And if you see, in this particular case, we have put and when the must base was used. That means she was Tokteshi or Setteshi. This can be, you can finish the sentence there, or you can put and continue the sentence. In the case of patent, it will be better to put and, because the first clause or the first topic is getting connected to various components, and at the end this Tokchotusuru is coming, so it's always better not to break the sentence because continuity is required. And when we put all the segments which have been dealt with here in a tabular form, we see that all the segments are covered here, both on, we can see on the Japanese side and English side. This is the last part of the segment. So yes, Surabhi, can you summarize the the process we have followed here?
Segmentation, breaking the long sentences into smaller ones. Simplification. After the segmentation, substitute the unfamiliar terms with variables such as A, B, etc. Frame identification. Once the segment have been simplified, identify the frame, macro and micro. Frame transfer, that is FT, in target language. Transfer the frame with its equivalents in target language TL and place back the substituted parts. 5W1H application. Apply 5W1H for intertranspositioning of the whole segment for logical transpositioning.
In the previous slide, we have applied the 5W1H and other techniques, and we could get the equivalence for the segments quite comfortably. Now let's try to apply this 5W1H on the whole sentence, on the complete sentence. We can start with the last segment, that is Koto Tokchotosuru Hiseshoku Dendoku Denso system. So contactless transmission system, which is characterized by the, and now apply 5H on the segments. The first is, can you read the question? Now answer for this is coming in the form of the segment, the complete segment, and that segment is Zenki Hashinbu wa and then it continues o moto ni, and then koir o tokute shi, then tokuteshita fukusu no soden koir ni nagareru denryo no hake ga zureru yoni, then parameta o sette suru. So this is the characteristics. Donna koto tokchu suruka is, these are the verbs, these are the things which are happening. This is the characteristics features of this patent.
Sochte.
Oh, okay, you are not satisfied? Yeah, I think there were more than one segment. So the second segment gives, the next segment gives the answer to this sochte. And if we see, it starts with the zenki soden sochi wa, then it goes to something sareru, saichi buto, and then fukusuno soden koirto, then kaku soden koiru o, and if you continue, then it is hashin buto, then again kenchi buto, and finally then kenchi bu ni yori kenchi sareta kaku soden koiru no inductance o motoni. So to o motoni, and finally saichi ichi o hante suru hante buto o sonae. So soshte gets answered here, it sonae, so it equips with various parts. So we can see here, the clause order of source language gets maintained automatically. Any other question? Yeah.
Dono Yona system.
Okay, Dono Yona system. So Dono Yona system, you have to explain about the system. So it's getting as system de ate. So if we begin, then it was something sochi. So then sochi to, then again to o sonairu, he says shuku. Okay, no, there must be one more, I think somewhere in between. I can't read. It is kitsugo sareru juden koiru o fukumo juden sochi to. So there are two sochi A to, sochi B o sonairu. So it talks what type of system. So it says it's a system which has got this. And this comes the overall translation, which is quite readable. It does make sense. And this is just joining. Let's put one more question now, whether to check whether we are correct or wrong. What is the question? Oh, probably we missed this. We did not find any segment in the whole clause of where we can say talk about nanin site, because everything got answered. So no clear answer is available. Now, if no clear answer is available, that what is it that we are talking about, this means we need to now go back to the title of invention. It could be topic just before this statement, or it could be the title of invention. And the title of invention in this case is Hiseishoku Denryoku Denso system. So which shows that the first segment is connected to the title of the invention in this particular case. Now let's do some fine tuning. If we try to bring in this particular part which was there in the topic, was this particular topic content is occurring in the segment also at the end. So we need to put something, and that something comes as which is, and by doing some fine tuning we found that which can be dropped and it becomes is. So this translation could be the final translation. We are not very sure whether it is 100% correct or not, but we have tried to maintain the accuracy from the original. All components are transferred in a very accurate manner, and this is what the translation comes as: the scope of the patent and the claim 1. But there are some observations. First is that it was quite a complicated process. There's no doubt. You may feel that you are tired and you will never attempt a patent again. But let me tell you a fact about the patent, that it is only the scope of the patent, or maybe the first paragraph or the second paragraph, which are considered difficult. Once you have done this, rest of the part is more or less repetition of what has been done here. So the issue here is, are we sure whether our translation was accurate or not? And this confidence level or doubting yourself, I think, this confidence level may not improve very easily even in time to come. So could there be a better method, even if it is a mechanical one, where the accuracy is ensured and readability is okay, means it's not very bad? So let me refer to the compilation of comments that we gathered in the OTTP classes. Regarding the scope of patent, there are 2 or 3 very relevant observations which were compiled during the learning or during when the trainees were guided there. First is that the scope of patent may or may not have the subject. That was found in this case because the topic was, or the subject was actually in the title of the invention. However, at the end, it will always refer to the output of the invention. That means what is it talking about, that will come in the scope at the end. Then output of the invention is usually preceded by a line and which begins with something o tokchoto suru something, and its equivalent would be is characterized by, and that refers to the characteristics and features which are listed in the context mostly above the o tokchoto suru. But the literal translation may lack the coherence that is required for the sentence, as it is difficult to connect the subject and the remaining part without the subject knowledge. Therefore, something is to be done. So to solve this issue, a patent specific writing style in target language has been suggested in this OTTP course. Now, during last few decades, an attempt was made to devise some mechanism where this style of Otokchoto Suru can be translated, and it's found that so far it's found that this works very well, and now that is being practiced in the ongoing translation training program also. If we start with this patent deals with, now can you read it, Surbi, first? This patent deals with
contactless transmission system.
Wait, so it is talking about what is being dealt with, that is the title of the invention.
Comprising a transmitting device that includes transmission coil transmitting power.
This is an adjectival part.
And a charging device that includes charging coil magnetically coupled to the earlier mentioned transmission coil.
Again, this is adjectival part. And now, wherein, so this patent deals with something which is something with some adjectival part, wherein, and after wherein you can have all the verbs, all the components, all the segments in the sequence the way it is occurring in the source language. I don't think this is required to be read completely. You can read it for yourself. The only change or only difference between this particular one as compared to the translation which was arrived at by the application of the earlier techniques is that it has got this patent deals with something wherein. So this patent deals with, this deals with, as well as wherein, both of these components are actually not there in the source language. So this is the key feature of this particular module while translating the scope of the patent in particular. The learning in this module are as follows. The process is certainly too long. The process which we have adopted is certainly too long. I would say have patience and proceed step by step. Simple examples will be covered in the next module to ascertain the applicability of the techniques. Steps involved in the process are as follows. We did segmentation, then simplification of the segmentation, then frame identification, then frame transfer, applied 5W1H for intra-transpositioning of the segments, 5W1H for overall transpositioning. It can be very easily said that the segmentation is very crucial, and you find it difficult to do segmentation or you find it difficult to apply logic, so use hit and trial. It works sometimes, and even if it does not work, you have seen here that we did the segmentation 2 times and finally it works. So topic or subject may have to be derived from the title of invention. If it is not there, actually it was there coming at the end of the scope, but you do not know whether that is the topic or the subject, so it has to be picked up from outside. And last segment, that is Otokchoto Suru, is patent specific writing style and can be treated as a universal unit or domain specific universal unit, and may be translated first as this patent deals with, and it is connected to the remaining clauses by wherein. So the key learning actually lies here. The rest are all more or less techniques, that O Tokcho Tosuru has to be translated as this patent deals with wherein. Parallel examples and elemental relation help in deciphering the equivalent when dictionary or other resources do not help, and such technical domain require good knowledge of basics, that is grammar, expression, unit, frame capture, 5W1H application, frame transfer, or maybe transpositioning, etc. These are the references, the paper on CPCI theory, and the link which is given here, it gives a lot of information with regard to patent. Once you do this type of exercise of this module, and some more simpler examples of scope of patent will be covered in the next module. Once you have done this, when you refer to this particular link, you will find this link very useful. So see you again for more examples on scope of patent in module 20. Thank you very much.